right, well, I'm ready.
Y'all good?
You good?
Yeah.
All right, Chief.
Okay. Is the sound okay?
Mm-hmm.
Mic'd up? All right. So today we have announced that we've brought forth charges in a case of a rape, repeated rape, sexual assault of a 10-year-old minor 10 years ago. And we know that the suspect in the sexual assault is an individual who was convicted of a sexual assault that he committed back in 2009 on his own daughter, 6-year-old daughter. And while he bonded out on those charges, he sexually assaulted the 10-year-old daughter of his fiancée at the time. And that 10-year-old daughter did not report the repeated sexual assaults for over a 6-month period until January of this year. And the reason she did that was because he reached out to her through a texting application on a cell phone from Broad River Correctional Facility. And so, I mean, just a week ago, we were here talking about a situation where individuals committed a scam on a military veteran, and that military veteran took his life. And here we are again within a week talking about a case where an individual reaches out to a person that he has victimized repeatedly 10 years ago from a correctional facility with a cell phone, a contraband cell phone, and has, in fact, tried to encourage her to send nude pictures of herself to see how much she's grown in the subsequent 10 years. I think I'm saying that correctly. And, you know, we have got to do something about this. This is federal law that's preventing Director Sterling, Brian Sterling, the Director of Corrections for our state, from addressing this matter with any level of substance. You heard from him last week. I know you've heard from him over multiple years now in terms of trying to address this issue, and he has tried very, very hard to protect the victims, people who are victimized by people who are later convicted and incarcerated, from being re-victimized, and from these scams, hits, and other criminal activities that are occurring behind prison walls and are affecting us in the neighborhoods we live in, the communities we live in all across our state, and quite frankly even beyond our state borders. So we have to do something, but we can't do it without the federal legislation that enables what can occur in the federal prison system to occur in the state prison system, and that is to block cell phones from functioning within the confines of the correctional facility. There is no reason that we should not be able to protect the interests of the residents of our state from this kind of victimization. And so this gentleman has been charged here today. And he's been charged again because he continues to reach out and try to prey on people that he's preyed on in the past. So we need help, and I hope that our federal legislators, our representatives in Congress, can make something happen.
Do you know if there have been any efforts to make something like that happen at the state level with blocking cell phones at correctional facilities? Has there been any effort for that in the past that you're aware of?
I'm only aware of Brian Sterling's efforts, and they have been significant, and it has been a very difficult lift. It's been obstacle after obstacle in his path to try and protect. You know, there's netting over these facilities now because people were dropping them in with drones and throwing footballs with contraband and drugs and everything. You know, and people were just compromising the security, the outside security and the fencing security of our correctional facilities. So He has taken multiple measures to try and protect the interests of the public and to prevent contraband, drugs, and weapons from entering from behind prison walls. And you know, it's an impossible job. And now he's trying to deal with the criminality that comes from the cell phones, and he needs help. And every one of the federal legislators, not just in this state, but all across our country, ought to be concerned about this, because this is fueling crime in our communities.
And is this inmate, is he in prison now for the assault he committed on his fiance's daughter?
He's in prison now for the assault that he committed upon his own daughter.
Okay.
And we only in January, late January, became aware of the 2009 assault while he was out on bond against his fiance's daughter.
Who was 10 at the time.
Who was 10 at the time.
Now, I guess, 19 or
20. She was 10 and 11. It was kind of a birthday in that 6-month period.
I think people are going to want to know why he got out on bond also.
So I can't answer that question. It was 10 years ago that he did get out on bond, but then he was convicted and he was incarcerated, and he's been incarcerated since. And so this young lady did not come forward at the time. She was afraid, and there was a question about the veracity of her claims at the time. But he reached out. She did not reach out to him. He reached out to her via this contraband cell phone and tried to initiate a conversation, tried to initiate FaceTime contact, and was clearly asking things of a sexual nature.
Any idea with these new charges, what type of penalty comes with them, how many years?
So I don't know if they've changed since in the past 10 years, any of the penalties or anything associated with them, but anybody who's charged with a crime from that time will be charged up under what the law was at that time that they committed the crime. So, but they're serious crimes. I mean, it's essentially the sexual battery of a minor who was 10 or 11 at the time, and it was multiple occurrences in that 6-month period.
I mean, this guy sounds like a serial predator. Is there a possibility he reached out to other people with a cell phone over this time period?
So I don't know the answer to that question at this point. I know our investigation was specific. We have downloaded the contents of the cell phone, so we'll be examining that further to see if there's anything else, and if it did not apply within the Greenville City jurisdiction, we would be in contact with any other jurisdictional authority to address that concern.
Gotcha. And have y'all or the Department of Corrections determined how he got the cell phone?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Can you talk about how pervasive the cell phone issue is in prisons?
Well, I don't know the depth of it the way our correctional counterparts do, but I would just say, you think about what the director of our correctional system in this state spoke to last week, everything from an actual hit on one of his correctional officers who was effective at seizing contraband to, and that was a first-degree burglary and attempted murder inside his home. We know that the cell phones were part of the coordinated correctional riots of a couple of years ago. We know that people have operated drug and other criminal conspiracies and criminal enterprises from prison via the use of cell phones. So it is not disrupting. Prison, being in a correctional facility is no longer, technology has evolved, and being in a facility is no longer disrupting the criminal activity, enterprise, and engagement of the prisoners. That's a problem. And that is not a problem that our society can ignore. So you have, I think, legislation introduced in the United States Senate by Senator Graham and Senator Cotton that seeks to permit the state correctional facilities to address this issue, much as their federal counterparts have. I hope that Congress will take a very quick look at that and make very quick passage of it because we need that help.
Do you know if they count like how many cell phones are confiscated in prisons or have that information available?
So since 2016 in South Carolina, there have been over 16,000 phones and phone paraphernalia collected as contraband. So that's a pretty significant amount.
And is it up to the guards to be watching out for that? Like, how do they know if cell phones are being used?
So guards do watch out for that. I mean, I'm quite certain they're on the prowl all the time for people who are engaged in behavior and are in possession of things that they're not permitted to be in possession of, whether it's drugs, whether it's cell phones, whether it's weapons. You know, there have been in the past, there have been corrections officers who, or personnel, may not only be officers, excuse me, who have introduced contraband into the prison system. People have thrown it over the walls. People have flown it in and dropped it. People have brought it in various forms. There is always an effort to compromise whatever security is in place. But this is different in that people are able to control and run criminal operations from inside prison walls because they can communicate outside at will. And we have to address that. All right, thank you.
Grab those mics off you.
Sorry?
We'll grab these mics off you.
If you guys want to talk to somebody from the correctional facility, I do have the contact information. Do you have Chris's name and number?
I'm just grabbing. And I got channel 4s. Which one you want, Don? The one that goes with our
Christy Shane, California, CH. Yeah, one word.